There is a vitamin almost no cardiologists mention to you, and it may be the difference between arteries that stay open and arteries that turn into stone. It doesn't lower your cholesterol, doesn't thin your blood, it does something stranger. It decides where the calcium in your body is allowed to go. Today I'll show you that vitamin, the molecule it controls, and the studies suggesting you can slow and in animals even reverse calcium hardening your arteries right now. Spontaneous calcification of arteries and cartilage in mice lacking matrix GLA protein. This is a study done by Ducy and McKee in Nature, 1997. In 1929, a Danish biochemist named Henrik Dam fed chickens a fat-free diet and watched them bleed uncontrollably. The missing factor was a new fat-soluble vitamin. He named it K, for the Danish word for coagulation, and shared the 1943 Nobel Prize for it with Edward Ducy, who worked out its structure. Then came the twist. In 1940, a second form of this vitamin K was isolated, and the two split into vitamin K1 and vitamin K2. Vitamin K1 from leafy greens goes mostly to your liver to run clotting, and it barely reaches your arteries. Vitamin K2, the menaquinones, comes from fermented foods and travels out to the tissues K1 never reaches, including your arterial walls. The richest source of vitamin K2 on Earth is natto, the fermented soybean dish from Japan. That single difference in where each form travels is why K2 protects your heart and K1 mostly does not. People ask whether the body just makes this vitamin itself. Vitamin K is classified as essential, which means your cells cannot build a core vitamin from nothing. But you do make some K2 in two ways. Your gut bacteria produce it in the colon, though you absorb very little of it, and your own tissues convert vitamin K1 into the MK4 form using the enzyme called UBI81, right inside the brain, the pancreas, and the artery wall. So MK4 is genuinely made by your body just from a dietary starting material, vitamin K1. What you cannot make is a long-acting MK7 form of vitamin K2 from natto, which is why that form still has to come from your plate or a capsule. Here's the machinery. Your body builds certain proteins in an inactive form, and an enzyme has to attach a chemical handle, a process called carboxylation, before they can grab calcium. Vitamin K is a required cofactor for that step. No vitamin K, no carboxylation, no working protein. Think of vitamin K2 as the key that turns these proteins from off to on. The most important one for your arteries is called matrix GLA protein, or MGP. MGP was discovered by Paul Price in 1983 and is one of the most powerful calcium blockers in the human body, with no good backup if it fails. It is made right inside your artery wall. When vitamin K switches it on, active MGP grabs calcium and the early crystals trying to deposit in the arterial vessels and locks them up before they can harden the artery. It also blocks a bone-building signal called BMP2 that would otherwise turn your artery walls into bone-making cells. Is MGP only in arteries? No, it's also in your cartilage, your kidney, your lung, your heart, which is why those knockout mice did not just calcify their arteries, they calcified their cartilage too. And when you're low on vitamin K2, MGP stays in its inactive form, which doctors can now measure in your blood as a direct readout of your calcification risk. So what happens when MGP fails and calcium gets in? It does not arrive as loose powder. Inside the plaque, dying smooth muscle cells and macrophages release tiny membrane packets called matrix vesicles, and those become the seed crystals. Calcium and phosphate gather on them and harden into calcium hydroxyapatite, the exact same mineral that builds your bones, which is why a calcified artery is literally growing bone where bone does not belong. It sits in the soft lipid-rich core of the plaque and along the fibrous cap above it. And the plaque climbs through stages. First, a soft, fatty streak of cholesterol and foam cells, then a fibrous cap of collagen and fibrin laid down to wall it off. Then minerals starting as scattered microcalcifications that merge into solid calcium, soft to fibrous to bone, right inside the artery wall. Before the next study, I want you to comment one word, yes or no. Do you believe a vitamin can actually shrink calcium that is already locked inside an artery wall? Type it now, I'll wait. So most people assume that once an artery hardens, it stays hard. The animal data says otherwise. In a 2007 study in the journal Blood, researchers calcified the arteries of rats, then fed half of them a high vitamin K2 diet. The treated rats dropped their existing arterial calcium by roughly 50%, and their arteries regained flexibility. That's regression, not just prevention. The dramatic reversal data is strongest in animals. In humans, we have powerful prevention data. In the Rotterdam study of almost 5,000 people, the highest K2 intake meant 57% lower heart disease death. And in the first long-term human trial, 3 years of MK7, vitamin K2, improved arterial stiffness and cut inactive MGP in half. The human regression evidence is still being built, but the direction is consistent. K2 keeps calcium out, and given enough, the body appears able to walk some of it backwards. If you follow this channel, you know reversal means lowering LDL, turning on the reverse cholesterol transport pathways, the HDL system that carries cholesterol out of the plaque. So is K2 part of that? The honest answer is no. Reverse cholesterol transport handles cholesterol, the soft cargo. MGP and vitamin K2 handle calcium, the hard cargo. They are two different problems in the same wall. Think of K2 as the third pillar of reversal, the one that handles the hardening that cholesterol control alone never touches. So here's the part that should change how you see your bones and your heart at the same time. K2 also switches on a sister protein in bone called osteocalcin, which pulls calcium into the skeleton, while MGP keeps that same calcium out of your arteries. This is the calcium paradox. In K2 deficiency, both switches stay off. So calcium drains out of your bones and settles in your arterial vessel walls. The worst of both worlds, osteoporosis and calcified plaque. Osteocalcin is built by your bone-forming cells, the osteoblasts, with a little made by the cells that build your teeth. Vitamin D and weight-bearing exercise raise it, which is one more reason I ride, and then vitamin K2 carboxylates it into its working form. Warfarin, steroids, and plain aging strand it in its useless, inactive form. Now connect this to the vitamin almost everyone watching already takes. Vitamin D and K2 are a team. They synergize, and most people swallow only half of it. Vitamin D. Vitamin D pulls calcium into your blood and tells your cells to build more MGP and more osteocalcin, but it builds them switched off. K2 is what flips them on. Take high-dose vitamin D with too little K2 and mechanistically you raise blood calcium and produce more inactive guards to manage it. The biochemistry is well established, even if the hard human proof is still being built, which is exactly why D3 and K2 now come in the same capsule. Taking vitamin D without K2 is like hiring movers to bring in the furniture, never telling them which room it goes in. So you get osteoporosis and you get calcified plaque when you have high vitamin D but low vitamin K2. How common is this problem? In the Prevent study of more than 4,000 people, 31% of the general population had functional K2 insufficiency, meaning they lacked enough vitamin K2, climbing to about 50% in older and higher risk people. And by the most sensitive markers, up to 97% of older adults. Most adults are walking around with their MGP guard partly switched off, not because they're starving. Ordinary diets simply do not deliver enough K2. The official target is an adequate intake of 120 micrograms a day for men and 90 micrograms for women, with no separate number for K2 at all. So it's built on vitamin K1 data and clotting, not on protecting your arteries. If you already have plaque, start with food because food is the form your body handles best. Natto is in a league of its own, nearly 1,000 micrograms of MK7, the long-acting form, in 100 grams of natto, followed by aged hard cheeses, egg yolks, dark meat, poultry, and liver. On supplements, the form that reaches your arteries is MK7 because it stays active for days, while MK4 lasts only hours. The human trials that move arteries used 180 micrograms of MK7 a day, and calcification studies have run upward to 360 micrograms. That's 180 to 360 microgram window as a practical research range for someone with established plaque. Set your own number with your physician and hear the next part before you touch a capsule. I don't ask you to do anything I haven't done in my own arteries. I reverse measurable plaque in my own carotid arteries in just 3 months, and the MK7 from natto has been part of my stack almost the entire time. But one serious warning, and please don't skip it. If you take a blood thinner, like aspirin, warfarin, any of the potent blood thinners, vitamin K is a direct antagonist. They compete against these drugs. And changing your intake can swing your clotting dangerously, so never change it without your doctor. This video is education, not medical advice. So comment down below, have you ever heard that vitamin K2 controls where your calcium goes? And are you getting any natto or K2 rich food in your week right now?
These videos save lives. Tag me, like, subscribe, and ask your questions below. Click one of these videos and share it with someone you love. Together, we will save lives. For my up-to-date learnings and more, visit me at ham.com.